ill today.
Again?
We just keep passing it around.
Or do you think he's just kind of ill on the first and third Monday for some reason?
I'll say something about Gove, you better be watching this on YouTube. Karen, are you here, ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
We could have the roll call, please.
Gunther,
Here.
James,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Rhodes,
Here.
Simmons.
Thank you. We're gonna do a quick resolution excusing Commissioner Simmons, for personal reasons from the meeting today. Is there that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed the same. Could we stand for the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Agenda is before us. Any changes, Mark?
No changes, Mayor.
Additions to the agenda?
None
We'll
from me.
approve that. There are no minutes to approve, no special orders. Study session are two today by, our city staff. The first is by Carla Staff and City Treasurer on budget timelines. Please.
So there's a budget timeline attached for you that states the dates that certain things need to happen. The first one is the capital improvement project, CIPs as we call it, requests are due. And the planning commission actually handles this. So what I had to ask Michelle, why is that? Because I wanted to know, why does the planning commission do that? And she said it was a requirement of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. It's their responsibility to prepare the CIP after the adoption of a master plan, unless it's exempted by your charter. So that's the way, why that happens the way it does. So the CIP administrative group gets together to discuss all the projects. We actually have a 5-year timeline. I think it's 5 years. 5 years, Michelle? 6 that goes out. So we kind of project that far out. And so the year that we're most interested in, of course, is for the upcoming fiscal year. So the different departments turn in their requests, and then they're rated. And then we pick what we think we can fund. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to make it into the final finished budget. We have to see if we have enough revenues, if we have enough fund balance to fund our projects. So once that's done, it goes to the planning commission and they make their final recommendation. And that will be submitted to the city commission, and that happens that's gonna happen in the second meeting in March. Before that happens, budget templates are available for completion. So those get handed out to the department heads to complete. And I did attach an example for you, and it was for the city clerk's office. So the highlighted column is what they're filling out, with the treasurer's office doing all the salaries, related items, starting with salaries, all the way down to the retirements. And then they're gonna fill out everything else, and they're gonna look at, okay, how did we end our amended budget? How does that compare to our actual? What is our year-to-date so far? And then, Mark and I and the department heads will get together and discuss their budget. Mark and I make final recommendations, and then that actually gets rolled to the manager column before it gets rolled to the commission column to be approved. So that's how that works. So then they, in March, the end of March, beginning of April, year-end fund balance estimates are calculated. This helps us determine how our budget's gonna look, especially the general fund. Preliminary revenue estimates for the upcoming budget year are calculated. So I go out to the state websites and see what their estimated what we're estimated to receive for state revenue sharing, major and local street funding money, so that we can make our projections. Then, there is a public forum that's held in April. This year is gonna be April 21st. So that gives the public a chance to look at the budget and make any recommendations that they might have, something that they might like to see placed in the budget. So it's always nice to have that. Public hearings are held in May, first part of May. This year it's gonna be May 12th. The completed budget is presented to the commission. There's supporting schedules that go along with that. And then on May 19th of this year is when we're gonna adopt that final budget and we set our tax levies. And then that budget gets published on the city website, and it's also available in other sources. You can come in and the city treasurer's office has copies, the clerk's office has copies, the library also has copies. So, does anybody have any questions?
So Mark, how do you run that crucial meeting where you're putting what's gonna be on the final CIP?
It ends up being a number of meetings,
Yes.
Mayor, is in terms of how it actually works. We have a lot of back and forth on, what can we do, what are priorities, what have we heard from the commission, what are some of the things we've been talking about, what have we already applied for, like the RAP grant for the pool. Another one that's dominating this year, as you know, is the fire truck purchase or potential purchase that is actually on our, tentatively on our agenda for next time. So that's a many conversations, many different times that we look closely at all of those types of things. So it's not really a meeting where it happens in terms of staff. Michelle and I met, 4 times probably to try to finalize the list that she's now taken to the planning commission next week. Wednesday. This week, yeah. So it's many conversations.
Thank you, Carla. Questions for Carla? Hearing none, thank you. Next is our study session on pilot ordinance. Michelle Stenger.
So the pilot ordinance is chapter 155 of the city ordinance, and pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. So it's a program that the city can choose to participate in with developers who are providing elderly or low-income housing development for citizens in the city. There are a couple of terms outlined in it, but the purpose of the tax exemption process is for the city to encourage the construction of housing development for citizens of low income or elderly. So I included the chapter in your packet from the ordinance that does it. The establishment of the service is based off of the amount of rent that is collected by the developer minus what utilities they've paid, and then it's a 10% of that is what the payment to the city would be in lieu of paying property taxes to the city. There's a pretty long process for a developer to go through in order to get a pilot. First, they have to apply, which is basically by writing a letter to the city asking for one, with providing the information for us. Then it goes to our planning commission, and the planning commission reviews the pilot request. The planning commission would make a recommendation to the city commission, and then the city commission has the final decision on whether they want to approve a pilot request or not. There are criteria that is outlined in the ordinance, 6 different criteria that the developer would need to meet in order to qualify for a pilot. The first one, it has to be designated for elderly or low-income residents. Will meet the demand not adequately addressed by current housing inventory in the community. It will not have a significant negative impact on the existing rental housing market for substantially similar housing units. It is designed that the pilot agreement is essential to financing of the proposed development. Is designed to avoid an excessive concentration of subsidized housing in any particular section of the city, and will rehabilitate or remove some dilapidated or some substandard housing stock within the city. So in the packet, I provided an example of what this means number-wise for the city if we were to have a pilot request. So if we look at a 72-unit apartment complex that's on approximately 6 acres, and we assume that all 72 units are at approximately 60% AMI, 2-bedroom units with a family of 3 and a vacancy rate of 7. The market rate of those apartments, if they were not income-based and they just paid normal property tax, would be $96,738. If we develop that property as single-family homes, we would probably get about 20 homes depending on property lot size and things, and I assumed they were 2,000 square foot homes and they were all homestead. It would be approximately $78,000, $639 in property tax. If a pilot was applied, it would be approximately $77,459 that they would pay in lieu of property taxes. So they wouldn't pay property taxes, that's their in lieu of amount. And if the property was left undeveloped, the property taxes would be $1,063. The pilot payments are received and divided between the taxing jurisdictions in a similar manner to property taxes. So all of those numbers, the tax amount would not only be the city's portion. It would also include all the other portions like the county tax and school taxes and all of that. Any questions?
So there's not that big a difference between a standard property tax and the pilot payment. One was 86,000, one was 70-some thousand, right?
96 and 77, so.
3/4 roughly, yeah, a little more.
And that makes a huge difference to a developer putting in a multi-million-dollar development. Is that right? What is the other reason? There's gotta be another reason behind this, besides the pilot part.
One of the reasons my understanding, I'm
It's
sorry,
for them to
Michelle.
get money from somebody, it's gotta be.
Well, as part of the application, they're required to have a local participation or buy-in, and one
The
of
state of
the,
Michigan
by the state of Michigan.
demands that they
And
want
a
us to.
pilot is a industry standard,
Mich
maybe?
just scores them higher
Yeah,
if they have a pilot.
There's the reason. Now I got it. Because otherwise I wouldn't see that would be beneficial much to either party. But they have to do it if they get the special. Now a developer who's doing that for low-income folks, what other huge benefit do they get besides this little pilot thing? There's gotta be other benefits that they get for doing that.
Those would be benefits from the state
Right. But what are those benefits?
that I don't know the answer to that.
Lower taxes, big write-offs, I assume? Don't know.
I can look and try to find out, but I don't know the answer.
Questions for Michelle? Please.
My experience, my background is they apply for money to develop low income, there has to be a certain percentage low income in the development, and they get money from the state. Basically, they get cash.
They
So
do.
basically, funds from the state or feds. A lot of times, it's passed through. But they need to have the pilot
To qualify.
qualify.
I see.
Qualifications often, not always, but that's my experience from my experience.
That makes sense.
And they get a lot of money.
Do they?
If you look at what's going on in Grand Rapids, all the developments there, the developers are getting lots of money for developing housing.
So the curious thing that you had told me earlier, now you reiterated it today, is that they have to, by rule, find a housing unit that's dilapidated and destroy it, or improve it, or what?
They have, yeah, so if you look at letter F, it's the housing development will rehabilitate or remove some dilapidated or some substandard housing stock within the city of Big Rapids.
Who decides that? What structure, whatever?
We could point them in directions of structures that we think are substandard
They'd
or
have to
ones,
buy that structure and then demolish it,
or rehab it.
or rehab it at their cost, to qualify for this free money from the state.
Well,
No, that's just our ordinance.
That's just our ordinance, has nothing to do with the state.
Correct. That's our ordinance requirement.
Have we ever done this before? Have we had somebody tear something down?
Talked about it many times, whether or not we have a pilot downtown that was renewed.
I think there was another one
There
a
was
while
another
back that they
one.
just donated like $20,000 or $25,000, I'm pretty sure,
Oh, to the housing commission.
to the buyback program.
Really? So that's another way they get at that part.
How they get around it is totally your discretion. That's a local ordinance
I
created
see.
locally, that's up to the city commission, whether they meet it, don't meet it, waive it, that's
We have
your
no idea
call.
how much money you bargain that?
Bargain,
Like, we could have them buy the pawn shop and tear it down,
yes,
because there's housing upstairs?
yes, theoretically, yes, it's the commission's discretion.
Oh, boy, that changes a lot of things. Second thing, somewhere in there you explained to me that they want the opinion of the housing commission on the need. And there were 4 sections there related to the need, and competition against other housing companies, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, before it goes before the planning commission, the housing commission is requested to provide a letter of input to the planning commission and then the city, which gets forwarded to the city commission on their review of those 6 requirements.
So it's just an advisory letter, it's not a mandatory nixing of the project.
Correct.
And the developer has the right, obviously, to see that public letter from the housing commission to the city commission.
Right, yeah, it would be included in my packet to the planning commission.
Thank you. Others? Obviously, we have a developer who's interested, and that's why we brought this today, to educate all of us about pilots and what could happen. Yes, please.
should have probably added, it's a very detailed process to get those funds from development groups, HUD, whatever. It isn't just they sign their name, yeah, we got the pilot in Big Rapids, so we get to do this. They
It's
have-
extensive, huh?
It's very extensive,
Okay.
and there's more than one hearing. I should add that.
Thank you. Linda, anything you can think of regarding that? Linda has sent a letter on that, on this most recent thing, and was it in the packets or just in the email?
It was not in the packets because
Is it-
they postponed for April. Well, it wasn't in my planning commission packet because they postponed for their meeting until April. So I didn't include it.
Do we know why they postponed?
They just wanted more time to work through the process. They felt like they were rushing it.
Thank you. Other questions for Michelle on pilots? Hearing none, we'll keep moving then. Next is general business. There is public comment. Anybody have public comment related to anything on the agenda? Or not on the agenda? Anybody? Hearing none, we'll move on. General business resolution appointing a new assessor. Mark?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. As I think all are readily aware, Dan Kerwin resigned at the end of 2024, And so we're in need of an assessor. A committee was appointed, David Rhodes, and Lorraine James, Shyla Kyander, and Carla Staffen and myself were the committee. And we received a number of applicants and did 3 interviews. We had good applicants, qualified folks to do our assessing work, and had good debate on pros and cons of how we should move forward. And that committee then is bringing to you to this evening a recommendation to have Seth Lattimore do the work. You'll see information in your packet about Seth and his background as an assessor and some of the parameters to his, so to speak, bid. And I think the costs now are within sort of our accustomed range of paying for those services. He's willing to spend hours, 6 hours a week here at City Hall. And he described to us that would likely be a couple hours a day, multiple days, instead of one day that was 6 hours. He's local, his wife has a business downtown, is in and out of Big Rapids frequently and will stop here. He also talked about his willingness to be a mentor to our current staff, who's an up-and-coming person in the assessing field. So I think it's a really good partnership. I asked Seth to be here, and he agreed to that, but he's sick, just like many others. I talked to him today, and he's been sick for a few days, so that's why he's not here tonight. And I think that's all I have, Mayor. I'm happy to answer any questions, though.
Anybody have questions regarding appointing a new assessor? Anyone? Hearing none, is there a motion for the resolution appointing Seth Latimer and his LLC to become the city assessor?
So moved.
Second.
And there's a second. Motion second. Question further? We'll roll call that, please.
James.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes. Mark, I think that committee did fine work and fast work. I mean,
Yes, thank you,
very
Commissioner.
good that we
Both
got
of
an
you.
assessor that quickly.
Yeah, I should have said, Mayor, I'm sorry. I talked to him again, like I said today, and he's ready and willing to start next week if we can get the contract buttoned up. So I think he'll be right on it for us.
Very good. Next is, this is an interesting one. Are we gonna talk, let's talk fireworks for a minute. We don't have many people in the audience, but let's talk them anyway. Fireworks in town, I've only been here 40 years, but I only missed them 1 year when COVID time, you skipped them one, or somebody skipped them. In my whole time here, the J.C.'s always did the fireworks. I mean, that's what I remember the most.
Yes.
And then the J.C.'s kind of disappeared, and then other people picked it up. In the last 2 years, it's been brutal for Mark because nobody's picking it up. And the question is, should Big Rapids have fireworks? And everybody says yes, but then who's gonna take care of the fireworks now? Mark, you describe it. It's been a chore.
No, that's a very good summary, Mayor. So yeah, up until 2020, the J.C.'s, it was seamless. They had volunteers, they took money for parking, they raised money in other ways. That was their service to the community, was to provide fireworks. 2020 canceled. The year after that, I think the Lions Club headed it up. The year after that, maybe the J.C.'s tried to pick it back up. They since then resolved. We've had, most recently, as of last year, the Convention and Visitors Bureau took it on as a project, and were put on the fireworks. And the city has throughout that time made a contribution. We're at a $5,000. I don't know how far back $5,000 goes, but it certainly goes back a number of years. That's what we have historically donated in terms of a contribution. With all those missing links of who to schedule with, it got missed again. And the CVB is without a director and is not interested really in taking it on as a service project. And so the person we have historically used, his name's Mike, I don't know if he's listed on here, but Pyrotechnical calls and says, we'd love to have you guys on the list. You're a great client. We always love coming to Big Rapids. We haven't heard anything, but usually fireworks are scheduled. I think, when you want, the last time the one goes off, you schedule for the next year sort of thing. I mean, it's scheduled long before now. So he hadn't heard anything, and he calls and, you know, sort of has limited slots and availability. So there's a little bit of this time pressure of getting on the list, of not wanting to miss it. I have a hard time envisioning a small town America without a fireworks show. So that's why we're here. I made an appeal to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I think that may be stated in here too, to help with some funding. I talked to their board president today. They're not interested in funding a traditional fireworks show. They were more interested in potentially looking at something like a drone type show that has become, you know, you see them happening anymore. I don't know what that means for us or what you folks think of all that. That leaves us holding the bag, essentially. I did talk to Bruce Borkovich, who has been very supportive. He can't obviously speak for his whole board at Big Rapids Township, but has been very kind and wanting to help. So I know he has that on an upcoming agenda. How that plays out in terms of their board interest in contributing to our project. Total cost $23,000. It's about $1,000 a minute. I think this is scheduled to be a little less than 20 minutes, so maybe $750 a minute, something like that. Anyway, it's a tough one, but from city staff point of view, I think we feel like this is important. We haven't budgeted anything. I mean, we budgeted the $5,000. We certainly haven't budgeted the $23,000. It hasn't been out to bid. So these are some of the hurdles I'm bringing to you this evening, and I apologize for those. It'd take 4 votes. If you folks wanted to do it, all 4 of you would have to be on board. If you don't, then we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board somehow. So, Mayor, I think that's all I have. That's where we're at.
For 2 years running now, the city manager and I sit and trying to, who could do this? Who would do this? We'd ask. Last year, all these organizations and the convention bureau stepped up, and we took a big sigh of relief. This year, nobody's interested or stepping up or wants to give money or the time. We talked to the fairgrounds, fair board. They're okay to have us do it there, but no alcohol and no bands or things like that. It's gotta be simple, fireworks and home. Parking, they have no problem if we, use the basketball teams and football teams and stuff to do the parking, and we get a certain percentage of that and they get some, but it's not gonna be $23,000.
Might be a few thousand. I think he estimated maybe 1,000 parking, and they've done it on donations. I mean, wouldn't have to do it that way. That's the way they've done it in the past. Maybe make more money off donations than off paying $5 a car or something. And the way they've handled that is whatever group is volunteering their time, hockey team, football team, gets 25% of those proceeds. So, a few $1,000s probably you could get back through parking. Food vendor was interested, John Curry, Fair Board, and talked about a $500 kickback, but we're talking probably a $20,000 expense to the city if you want to proceed in this way. If you want us to find other ways, then that's certainly your prerogative. It's a tough call, but it's 4th of July. That's what people want and expect, I think.
Thanks.
Yep.
Amanda.
So, how I'm seeing this and viewing this is that the question we're asking is it the purview of the city to fund the fireworks display for a community that's not willing to come out and financially support it with its service organizations? When we're considering the fact that we're going into a year and there are a lot of uncertainties fiscally, it's going to be a tight, potentially, budget because the cost of everything continues to go up. The talks of tariffs, all of these other things that can impact our municipality, grant funding going away. And are we going to spend $23,000 on fireworks displays when none of our other service organizations are willing to even put in $5,000? That's the question, that's what I'm considering about this line item. I think that the fireworks displays have always been beautiful in our community. I take my kids out to see them almost every year. It's fundamental. I've pitched in money, I've volunteered when I've worked for different organizations doing certain activities in regards to these fireworks. However, am I being a good steward of the people's money by spending $23,000 on a fireworks display? That's the question, I guess, I'm considering today.
Thank you.
I don't have a big issue with the $23,000, but what I would like to see is the local businesses, where have they been approached? I mean, this is February, this does not happen until July. I mean, I understand you need to make a commitment, I get that. But, I mean, there's a lot of businesses out there, banks, you know, whatever, industrial park. I mean, none of them have been contacted.
Not yet, no.
No, not yet, Commissioner. Yeah, that is a little bit of, that's tough for a city staff person, right? To march around town and ask for donations. Historically, like our most recent, wealth of donations came from Hemlock Park. Well, you have somebody in the community who made that their priority and their passion to do it. So for us to
So
go
find
door to
somebody
door.
in the community to
Yes,
make this their passion.
The reason we're gonna vote today is because if we don't, we're gonna lose the people who have been here for years and years
And I
and
understand
years.
that, and I
That's the
don't have a
problem.
problem with that.
Right.
But
It's the other part.
you can't tell me there's not somebody in the community that could do this and take this on and
No, I
send out
agree with
letters
you.
or make phone calls or whatever.
But there's no guarantee, that's why.
No, there's no guarantee.
I would
I think
agree
you're
with
right.
her statement, but it is awkward for paid city staff to go out and fundraise. We need somebody in the community to go out and fundraise for us.
But you have a DBA association, for example. They aren't, well,
You're
I suppose
right.
there's a couple
We
city
know you're-
employees on there, but
You're,
yeah.
you're
right.
right. Yeah, I think there's money that could be raised.
Well, and
Yeah.
if you do this, which I'm asking that you do it, don't forget to contact me.
Thank you.
I just think it can be done.
You're right.
And once you do it, it's so easy to come back the next year and ask. I still got the same person, well, and maybe a different parent. I've got people coming in asking for the hockey donation for the high school that I donated years ago when I had a client who had a kid playing. The kid's an adult. But they still come in every year. Oh, you used to donate, will you still, yep, and I give them their money and away they go, happy as a lark.
We have to get rolling on it if we do.
Yes.
You got a few months.
Oh, yes.
I think you can find somebody that can do that.
I am not disagreeing with the word you say. It's just we don't know what that amounts to at this moment in time.
And if there's
Yeah.
excess money, then we have it earmarked
The next
for
year.
fireworks for the next
And
year.
have a fund and just
You
work
have a
towards it, yeah.
fund. Right, Carl?
David?
Absolutely.
Now, Mark, the date we're looking at is July 3rd, correct?
July 3rd, we could not get a July, since, I should have spoke on this, since we got off track back when we canceled and when we missed the deadlines and those kinds of things, for however many years we were on July 4th and we struggled to get back on. He has offered us July 3rd,
Pretty good.
seems okay, yeah.
My one concern is thinking of that date is I know one of our other communities just to the north and west of us, north and west of us, they are known for having theirs on July 3rd. So we will probably have, and a lot of people go to that one, it's a good show, it's at an airport over there, and they usually have theirs there, and so might have, a lot of people that might come to ours would be going there, so that's what we gotta think about too, is we may not have as many people sticking local to come, so.
Another thing, just for clarification, has it ever been the city's responsibility to fully fund and organize this event?
Not to my
Okay.
knowledge. Not to my-
So when you say we kind of got behind, you're talking the grander scale of people in the city of Big Rapids who organize this.
The community.
The community
Uh,
got
whoever
behind
that
it,
is, yeah.
not the city of Big Rapids.
The question is, who's doing the fireworks this year? Gets that question.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a haven't said anything, but I think we should have the fireworks, and we should pay for the fireworks, and we should fundraise as much as we possibly can and be done with it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we spend that kind of money on so many things that we really don't have to, that if we did a evaluation, we'd kind of go, whoa. There's always things that you don't have to have. Is there a motion for the resolution to fund the fireworks for this summer?
So moved.
Second.
Other further comments? Anybody from the public have any thoughts on fireworks? Nobody has said anything. Please,
We have a place out
say
there.
who you are so
Oh,
Karen
sorry.
can.
April Umke, I live at 1107 Rose Avenue. We have a place in Everett, and they also have the fireworks on July 3rd in on the Osceola airport. And they didn't have it last year. They did the same thing. They didn't have the money, and they fundraised at the very last minute. They came up with but the community came up with it. So just saying no doesn't mean that someone's not going to step up. So don't feel obligated, in my opinion, because you feel pressure at this point, because Everett had the same issue last year. And they came up with it then, and then it was beautiful last year. Granted, I live right on the fairgrounds too, but, you know, still, I got to enjoy both because it was different days, but just know it is possible for the community to step up. If you say no, then everyone's gonna start panicking, how can we make this happen? And that's when everyone does step up then.
We just gotta get on the guy's schedule, that's my worry. Somebody else will get the third, and then we'll have one. Could you call it, please?
I have one question real quick. So in here, I have covering all but 9,000. I'm going to take that out of this resolution. Just say McCosker County Fairgrounds on July, in the amount of $23,000. Is that fair? Let that be known that, okay.
Why does that have to be all the 4 votes, Mark?
It's financial.
It's financial in nature, yeah.
It's not set in the budget, so it has to be approved by 4.
Johnson,
No.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Gunther,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Motion fails for not having 4, there won't be fireworks this year.
Well, let me ask a question.
Well, that's what the vote went.
Karen's back at the next meeting?
I spoke with Karen today, and her intentions are to be at the next meeting, yes.
Okay, so it can be brought up again with her here?
Oh, where's our city attorney?
He's not here. You told him we didn't need him.
That has to be looked at by.
It has to be.
I'm pretty sure that
It has to be brought by somebody that,
Oh,
I'm not gonna speak to it.
Well, that's the
because-
way I thought it used to be, but he explained the last time that's not the way it is, so
Oh,
you
no,
need
I-
to get
I
with Brad.
I think you,
We'll find out. You may be right, and if you're right, then I'll find out. How's that? We'll just
Okay.
leave it there.
That's fair. In the meantime, I still wouldn't stop looking for somebody.
I would think that finding community support would definitely bring it to a different resolution if it came before us again. But I just, in my mind, I can't think in this current climate to dedicate or to support dedicating that much money to that type of an event when there are other places where that money would be better served. And there's no community financial support.
we have to be on the schedule. He'll soon get rid of the July 3rd, so I assume.
I understand, but we don't get put in these positions to make the wrong choice because there's a pressure or a deadline.
Thank you. Resolution next is DART. Mark?
Mayor, you'll remember that we have applied for sort of normal operating funding through the federal government. This is our federal portion of 18% of Dial-A-Ride's budget is funded that way. And this is accepting those funds in the amount of $141,678. The obvious question that you may have that I asked today was, have we heard that there's anybody who thinks that this type of funding, federal in nature, for transit would, be of any risk? And the answer to that was no. None of those conversations have been going on in the world of transit operators or Dial-A-Ride operators. So, and this is sort of a normal thing we do every year to help make Dial-A-Ride function.
Any questions, discussions? This is the same one we've done every year
Yeah.
forever. And if they don't provide it, we just have to cut services. That's the gist of that. Is there a motion for the resolution to take the federal funds for the dial-a-ride operation? Operating formula grant for rural areas program agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, questions? Karen?
Rhodes,
Yes.
Sumter,
Yes?
James,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Anybody have unscheduled business for the commission? Anyone?
Mayor, I'll chime in, just quick little things. We had, and some of you I talked to before the meeting, the printing press out at the Township Industrial Park that's off the township's water system was without water this evening. Found out that it was a frozen line that, the township water plant was working fine. It was the line going to the building. They have since de-thawed it. They have back to water. It just, you know, we're gonna have to look closely at this next week, upcoming week. We haven't had a run water notice, and this is not one. Me talking about it is not one of those. But it starts to get to that point, and we've had them in the past. In the cold winter, sometimes you get there. So just be vigilant with. I know David had experienced that. Commissioner Rhodes in his just earlier this winter. Just folks, be careful. Make sure you're paying attention, and if there's an issue, the city will make that public to everybody. The other one that came up this evening was snow piles where you can't see around corners. And if you see some, get them to me. I'll get the guys to knock those back, because that's a dangerous thing. They're not pulling out it. The commissioner gave me one. I'll be right on it. And if there's others, just let me know if you notice them.
I have a question
Please.
that I think only Carla can answer. Carla, do you know how much money is in the number that we had on that last resolution? The 101-101-880?
Not without looking. And there was enough for the 9,000, but then, you know, that's changed to,
Okay, so there is 9,000 already budgeted, and that has been approved by the city commission because we adopted the budget.
yes.
Got it, thank you.
Anybody else, questions? We're adjourned.
I don't think you did. I didn't see it in the closet.
Mark? Not very smart of it, but, you know.
That was a way of doing.
Okay, so I have a question.